I thought I could control the mask I wore online until it became the only version of me that felt real. Now I'm not sure who's behind the screen anymore. I don't even recognize my own voice anymore. Sometimes I'll catch myself typing something online, and it's like I'm watching a stranger wear my skin. That's probably a weird way to start, but it's the only way I can explain how it feels. I used to think I was just being creative, you know? Like, everyone has a little bit of a mask they put on for the internet. But lately, it's like the mask is the only thing left, and I'm not sure what's underneath. It started out harmless. I was just bored, honestly. My real life felt flat. I'd go to work, come home, microwave something sad for dinner, scroll through my phone until my eyes hurt, and then do it all again the next day. I wasn't unhappy, exactly, but I wasn't anything. I was just there. So I made an account, just a throwaway at first, nothing special. I picked a name that sounded cooler than mine, a profile picture that wasn't me but could have been if I'd been braver or prettier or just more. At first, it was just for fun. I'd post jokes, comment on threads, make friends with people who didn't know anything about me except what I chose to show. It felt freeing, like I could finally say the things I was too scared to say out loud. I could be clever, or flirty, or even a little mean, and nobody would know it was me. I started getting followers. People would DM me, ask for advice, tell me I was funny or smart or interesting. I started to believe them. I don't know when it shifted. Maybe it was the first time someone told me they wish they could be more like me. Or maybe it was when I realized I was spending more time talking to my friends online than the people I actually knew in real life. I'd get home from work and immediately log on, sometimes before I even took off my shoes. I'd tell myself I'd just check a few notifications, but then it would be midnight and I'd still be there, arguing with strangers about TV shows or politics, or whatever drama was happening that day. My real life started to feel like the fake one. I'd go out with coworkers and feel like I was acting, like I was playing the part of normal person at happy hour. I'd laugh at the right times, nod along, but my mind would be somewhere else, usually thinking about what I'd post later, or if anyone had replied to my last comment. I started to resent the people around me for not being as interesting as my online friends. I know how that sounds. It's embarrassing to admit, but it's true. There was this one night. I remember it because it was raining, and I could hear the drops hitting my window like static. I was supposed to meet up with a friend from college, someone I hadn't seen in months. I almost canceled, but I forced myself to go. The whole time, I kept checking my phone under the table, waiting for a reply to a DM I'd sent earlier. My friend was talking about her new job, her boyfriend, her life, and I just wasn't there. I kept nodding, smiling, pretending, but I couldn't focus. I felt guilty, but not enough to stop. When I got home, I opened my laptop and just disappeared into it. I stayed up until 3 a.m. talking to people who only knew me as my online persona. I told them things I'd never say in real life. I made jokes I'd never have the guts to make face-to-face. I flirted with people I'd never meet. It felt good, in a way that real life never did. But when I finally closed my laptop, the silence in my apartment felt heavier than ever. I started to notice little things. I'd catch myself using phrases I'd picked up online, even when I was talking to my mom on the phone. I'd think in memes, in snarky comments, in hashtags. Sometimes I'd forget what my own voice sounded like, the one that wasn't filtered through a screen. I'd look in the mirror and feel like I was looking at someone else, someone less interesting, less alive. I know this all sounds dramatic. Maybe it is. But it's like, the more I invested in my online self, the less I had left for my real one. I started skipping plans, making excuses, telling people I was busy when really I just wanted to be alone with my screen. My apartment got messy. I stopped cooking. I stopped reading books, even though I used to love it. I'd just scroll and scroll, chasing that little hit of validation every time someone liked my post or replied to my comment. There was this one night. I don't even remember what set it off, maybe just a bad day at work or something stupid someone said online, but I found myself crying in the dark, my laptop still open, notifications still pinging. I felt so alone, but also not alone because there were always people online, always someone to talk to. But none of it felt real. Or maybe it felt too real, and that was the problem. I started to wonder if I was addicted. I Googled it, of course. There are a million articles about internet addiction, about how social media rewires your brain, about dopamine and loneliness and all that. But none of them really captured what I was feeling. It wasn't just about the time I was spending online, it was about who I was becoming. Or maybe who I was losing. After that night, I tried to set some boundaries. I deleted a few apps from my phone. I told myself I'd only log on after dinner, or only for an hour at a time. But it never stuck. I'd find myself reaching for my phone without even thinking about it, like muscle memory. I'd tell myself I was just checking the news, but then I'd end up in some comment thread, arguing with strangers about something I didn't even care about. I started to feel like I was living two lives. There was the online me, witty, confident, always ready with a comeback. And then there was the real me, tired, lonely, kind of invisible. I didn't know which one was real anymore. Or maybe neither of them were. It's weird, the things you start to notice when you're half in and half out of your own life. Like, I'd be at work, and someone would ask me a question, and I'd answer automatically, but in my head, I'd be thinking about how I'd phrase it online. Or I'd see something funny on the street, and my first instinct wasn't to laugh, or even just enjoy it. It was to think, how can I turn this into a post? I started narrating my own life in captions, like I was living for an audience that wasn't even there. I think the scariest part was how easy it was to slip into that other self. I'd log on, and it was like flipping a switch. Suddenly I was charming, quick, even a little ruthless if I needed to be. I could win arguments, make people laugh, get attention. I could be the person I always wished I was, but never quite managed to be in real life. And people liked me. Or at least, they liked the version of me I'd built out of jokes and hot takes, and carefully chosen photos. But the more I leaned into that, the harder it got to come back. I'd go days without really talking to anyone in person, except for the bare minimum at work or the occasional phone call from my mom. I started to dread those calls, actually, because I could hear the worry in her voice. She'd ask if I was okay, if I was eating enough, if I'd made any new friends. I'd lie, of course. I'd tell her I was fine, that I was busy, that I was seeing people all the time. Sometimes I'd even believe it, for a second. There was this one weekend where I didn't leave my apartment at all. I ordered food delivery, barely got dressed, just sat in front of my laptop and let the hours blur together. I was in a group chat with some people I'd met through a fandom, and we were all watching the same show and live commenting. It felt like I was part of something, like I belonged. But when the show ended and everyone logged off, I just sat there in the dark, surrounded by empty takeout containers, feeling hollow. I started to worry that I was losing touch with reality. Not in a dramatic, I can't tell what's real kind of way, but in a quieter, more insidious way. Like, I'd forget what day it was, or I'd realize I hadn't spoken out loud in hours. I'd catch my reflection in the window and not recognize myself. My skin looked pale, my eyes tired. I'd think, this isn't who I'm supposed to be. But then I'd log back on, and it wouldn't matter. I tried to talk to one of my real-life friends about it once. We were at a coffee shop, and she was telling me about her new job, her new apartment, all these things that sounded so normal. I wanted to tell her how lost I felt, how much time I was spending online, how I didn't know who I was anymore. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. I just smiled and nodded and made a joke about being chronically online. She laughed, but I could tell she didn't really get it. Or maybe I just didn't know how to explain. Sometimes I'd fantasize about deleting everything, just wiping my accounts, disappearing, starting over. But the thought of losing all those connections, all those people who knew me, or thought they did, was terrifying. It felt like I'd be erasing a part of myself, maybe the only part that mattered. There was this one night, I keep saying that, but it's true, the nights are always the worst, when I got into a fight with someone online. It was stupid, just some argument about a movie or something, but it got heated. They said something that hit a nerve, and I snapped back, nastier than I meant to be. The whole group chat blew up. People took sides. I watched it all happen, feeling sick, but I couldn't stop. I kept typing, kept defending myself, even as I knew I was making it worse. Afterward, I just sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. I felt like I'd ruined everything. I wanted to apologize, but I didn't know how. I wanted to log off, but I couldn't. I just kept refreshing, waiting for someone to say something, anything. Eventually, I just closed my laptop and lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling. I felt empty, like I'd poured all of myself into this stupid fight and there was nothing left. The next day, I tried to go about my life like normal. I went to work, answered emails, smiled at my coworkers. But I felt like a ghost. I kept checking my phone, waiting for notifications that never came. The group chat was silent. I realized how much I depended on those people, those interactions, to feel real. Without them, I felt like I was fading. I started to wonder if I'd ever be able to go back. If I could ever just be myself, without the screen, without the persona. I didn't even know what that would look like anymore. I tried to remember what I used to do before all this, what made me happy, but it was all a blur. I felt like I was watching my own life from the outside, unable to reach through the glass. I know I sound dramatic. I know there are bigger problems in the world. But it's like I built this whole identity online, and now I don't know how to live without it. I don't know how to be real anymore. I wish I could say there was some big moment where everything changed. Like I hit rock bottom and suddenly saw the light, or someone staged an intervention, and I realized what I was doing to myself. But it wasn't like that. It was slower, messier. More like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were having. It started with little things. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone and force myself to stop, just for a minute. I'd sit on my couch and try to listen to the silence, even though it made my skin crawl. I started leaving my laptop in another room at night, just to see if I could fall asleep without the glow of the screen. Sometimes I'd fail, and I'd end up scrolling until 2 a.m. anyway. But sometimes I didn't. I tried to remember what I used to like before all this. I dug out an old sketchbook from the back of my closet, the one I hadn't touched in years. My hands felt clumsy, like I'd forgotten how to draw, but I kept at it. I started going for walks, even if it was just around the block. I'd leave my phone at home, or at least try to. The first few times, I felt naked, like I was missing a limb. But after a while, I started to notice things. The way the air smelled after it rained, the sound of birds in the morning, the way sunlight hit the leaves. It sounds cheesy, but it was like I was seeing the world again for the first time. I wish I could say I just quit cold turkey, but that's not how it worked. I still spent too much time online. I still checked my notifications first thing in the morning, still got sucked into arguments and drama and all the rest. But I started to notice when it was happening. I started to ask myself why I was doing it. Was I bored? Lonely? Avoiding something? Sometimes I'd catch myself before I went too deep. Sometimes I wouldn't. I tried reaching out to my real-life friends again. It was awkward at first. I'd flaked on so many plans, ignored so many texts, that I was sure they'd given up on me. But some of them were still there, still willing to meet for coffee or go for a walk or just sit in silence. I told one of them, really told her, about what I'd been going through. How I felt like I was living two lives, how I didn't know which one was real. She didn't judge me. She just listened. I can't even explain how much that helped. I started to realize that I didn't have to choose between my online self and my real self. They were both me, in different ways. The problem wasn't the persona, it was the way I was using it to hide from everything else. I started trying to bring more of my real self into my online life, and more of my online confidence into my real life. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I'd slip back into old habits, say something online that I'd never say in person, or retreat into my shell when I was out in the world. But I kept trying. There are still days when I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm just a collection of usernames and profile pictures and half-finished thoughts. There are still nights when I stay up too late, chasing that feeling of connection, even though I know it's not the same as being with someone in person. But there are also days when I feel present, when I can look someone in the eye and really listen, when I can sit with myself and not feel like I'm missing out on something happening somewhere else. I don't have it all figured out. I probably never will. But I'm learning to live with the messiness, to accept that I'm not just one thing or the other. I'm both. I'm the person who makes dumb jokes online, and the person who cries in the dark when it all feels too much. I'm the friend who flakes on plans and the friend who shows up, eventually, with coffee and apologies. I'm trying to be kinder to myself, to forgive myself for the times I get lost. Sometimes I still wonder which life is real. But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe they're both real in their own way. Maybe the trick is just to keep showing up, wherever I am, and try to be honest, at least with myself. I still don't recognize my voice, sometimes. But I'm starting to hear it again, underneath all the noise.